Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from the modern psychiatric consulting offices and weaponized courtroom testimonies of Los Angeles forensic thrillers, and descend directly into the high-frequency, calculation-heavy tracking grids of true crime podcast networks, weaponized small-town gossip, and the deeply protective world of a premier independent protagonist asset running raw tactical memory restoration loops. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, blood-stained rural perimeters and wealthy gated neighborhoods of Plumpton, Texas. The unique procedural grid of an active multi-layered homicide tracking operation and the lethal analytical parameters of a sprawling reputation-based survival matrix, with Listen for the Lie, the exceptional pulse-pounding structural masterpiece marking the monumental, globally dominant, chart-topping domestic legal psychological thriller engineered by the absolute undisputed sovereign of high-velocity true crime statecraft, sharp psychological profiling, and rogue analytical manipulation, Amy Tintera. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where a fierce, underestimated female amnesia asset running an unyielding safety loop, a powerful, cold-eyed podcast host partner running a high-stakes journalistic investigation routine, and an absolute defense of an individual's final personal sovereignty metrics collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn investigative suspense thrillers where an endangered, hyper-observant legal intelligence team must navigate an absolute maze of rigged municipal coordinates, elite upper-class cover-ups, and a deadly ring of active community gaslighting while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised domestic ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep psychological profiling, calculated chronological boundaries, and absolute mental stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory killer network, and where the author utilizes an incandescent young woman found wandering covered in her best friend's blood with no memory of the murder is forced to return home years later when a viral podcast reopens the case, diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits. This book is engineered to lock you in. Tintera completely dominates the high-precision audio tradecraft meets chilling domestic betrayal puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating domestic paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre vargs like Gillian Flynn, Ashley Elston, Lucy Foley, and Michael Connolly, while treating realistic digital media forensic logistics, complex trial law enforcement alignment arcs, and protective high-density interrogation extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse asset, Lucy Chase, operating under a severe, calculation-heavy handicap of massive domestic emotional trauma, limited institutional police backing, and a hyper-visible targeting profile by the district's aggressive prosecution capos. Behind Lucy's rigorous digital database footprints and tense neighborhood cross-examination ledger logs lies an intricate matrix of hidden faction allegiances, deeply buried high society secrets, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Her collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight behind a lifetime of protecting her personal sanity metrics and surviving complex social ambushes, her entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from an elite prosecution network, parsing complex behavioral shifts from her hostile hometown critics, and shielding her vulnerable sanctuary nodes from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite cleanup offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches her active scanning perimeter. A massively popular true crime podcast host arrives in her small Texas town, instantly cross-referencing Lucy with a high-level calculated malice when he reopens the unsolved murder dossier of her best friend Savvy. As the hidden predator's calculation-heavy execution phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across the legal registry, a series of suspicious evidence sabotage attempts, targeted witness frame-ups, and calculation-heavy media ambushes threaten to permanently eliminate Lucy and her team from the active civilian registry. The official diagnostic metrics of the global tracking centers flash white-hot when her defensive counter-investigative maneuvers and raw physical tradecraft reveal that her pursuit of forgotten memories is radically, impossibly altering the community's historical balance of power. The standard boundaries of routine criminal defense and peaceful marital compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors.
They are thrust directly into an active, invisible war across Texas's wealthy elite circles, where deceptive old money families, highly manipulative audio engineers, and a calculation-heavy psychological network launch aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress their survival data stream. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the isolated country road clearings, dark recording booth surveillance perimeters, and private fortified residential chambers into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Lucy Chase is purposeful and resolute, determined to deploy her sharp, dark, sarcastic wit, deep localized knowledge, and persistent protective dominance to maintain her perimeter, only to realize her hometown's hidden internal secrets and shifting narratives match her raw tactical speed step for step. Our protective, hyper-vigilant protagonist is forced to deploy her massive intuitive tradecraft, elite evidentiary mapping skills, and raw intellectual stamina to preserve her focus before the next competitive cleanup phase permanently deletes her progress. Every midnight archive excavation, every silent choice to stand off against a suspicious former lover behind standard security barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at her reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the high society elite's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Amy Tintera reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial rumor or managing a difficult audio interview. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of institutional hierarchy and domestic supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark, possessive loyalty around their partnership, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes evidentiary breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that historical emotional hazards have tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient heroine must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a true crime psychological thriller, domestic suspense, small-town murder mystery, high-velocity contemporary norpuscle that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one-broadcasted interview clip triggers a fatal backyard showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or heavy possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Tintera writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, dark, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct, subtle scent of polished mahogany, expensive perfume, old Texas dirt, wireless electronic feedback, dynamic adrenaline, spilled copper, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this benchmark entry into Elita territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. Listen for the Lie is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes action fiction and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputdownable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell with your network to rewrite the data. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.